I recently wrote a story about the editorial landscape of campus newspapers, how many student newspapers throughout the country are rejecting pro-Israel perspectives. It also focuses on what students are doing about it. This was an important story that I think highlights the cultural war that's taking place on campuses right now as students continue to adopt an anti-Israel and, in some cases, anti-Jewish perspective. My career as a journalist actually started at a student newspaper years ago, so this was a full circle moment that's allowed me to revisit my roots and see how much has changed in a post-October 7th world. My name is Mitchell Konski. I cover campus life and education for the Canadian Jewish News. If you want to support this work and everything else that we do at the CJN, please visit thecjn.ca/donate. And if you're Canadian, you can also get a tax receipt.
This is Bonjour Chai, the Freeland of Expression edition. I'm Avi Feingold, and I'm here with Phoebe Maltzbovy and special guest Hal Niedzviecki. We are your Frozen Chosen. On today's show, we are mid-implosion of our federal government. We talk to Hal about that, about our trust in the Liberals and the future of Liberals and Conservatives in Canada and the US. But before that, we get the inside scoop on the implosion of his own magazine, Broken Pencil. We have been talking about this individual for a couple of episodes already, and so we decided to actually talk to this person. We have with us Hal Niedzviecki, writer, thinker, free speech activist. Until recently, I guess we could say that you were the publisher and editor-in-chief of Broken Pencil magazine, whose demise we have covered here in the past few weeks. We have figured enough talk about you. Maybe it is time to talk to you, especially given some of your recent posts dipping into general politics and the current shambles that our government seems to be in. Let's hold off on that for a second. I'd love to know what was actually happening with Broken Pencil at the end and what was going through your mind while it was happening.
Sure. So for your listeners who don't necessarily know, Broken Pencil is a magazine of zines and independent publishing, which really means mini magazines. So you kind of drop the MAGA and you get zine. And so people have been making mini magazines since the 40s and 50s. It started as kind of a sci-fi thing called the fanzine, where you loved science fiction so much that you wanted to kind of make a little mini magazine in tribute to your favorite writers. And then it went on from there. It took on a new life as a punk phenomenon, where you would just, scrapbook together some images. So people have been doing this for a long time, and Broken Pencil started in 1995 as a way to consolidate a bunch of this material and celebrate Canadian independent and underground publishing. So zines, comics, small press. And that's what the magazine has been doing for the last 30 years. I started as the editor after, 10 years or so. I moved to being strictly the publisher, so that was where we were at. We had two editors and a separate kind of books editor, books and fiction editor, and we had a publisher and an associate publisher. And after October 7th, I was expressing my displeasure about how my community was portraying what happened. I should put community in quotes. The artistic community, the kind of general activist left community that I was, associated with through Broken Pencil and through most of my career, I was not feeling good about what they were saying and how they were saying it.
When you say that you were expressing this, were you expressing it in the pages of Broken Pencil or elsewhere? Because something that I've been trying to, as somebody from outside the zine world, was Broken Pencil covering Israel-Palestine type topics generally and post-October 7th, and you had your own views separate, or how did it relate to the content itself?
Yeah. Good. Excellent point. So Broken Pencil does not report on politics, global issues. It's not a magazine of happening current events. It's strictly an arts magazine.
But arts is very into that. These, you know what I mean? Like,
I mean, of course, there's politics within the magazine. But for instance, if Avi Feingold made a underground comic about Middle East,
Palestine,
Israel Palestine, and sent it into Broken Pencil and said, will you review this? Then that would be a way that we might cover Middle East events, but otherwise that would not be something we would be taking up. And there had not really been any commentary in the magazine leading up to everything that happened. So Broken Pencil was completely not involved in any pro-Israel or pro-Palestine dialogue or any opinions whatsoever on Middle East politics. And when I say that I was expressing my point of view, I was doing that strictly on my own social media, mostly on Twitter, which is kind of the only social media that I really am very active on. And so I would sort of go on there and say, it's really nice. They've occupied my alma mater, University of Toronto, and have made every, person who disagrees with them, especially people of the Jewish faith and culture, feel incredibly uncomfortable and possibly even somewhat afraid. So I was saying things like this, and those were my personal opinions. So moving on, as this developed over the summer of 2024, some people started circulating these kinds of attack posts on social media, attacking me, often with a screenshot of one of my tweets. And saying, does this represent Broken Pencil? This is the publisher of Broken Pencil. This is an outrage. And they were putting these things mostly on Broken Pencil's social media. So primarily Instagram, which is kind of where Broken Pencil was most popular, but also on Twitter and Facebook. And then it sort of escalated. We were kind of just ignoring it. And then it escalated to every single thing Broken Pencil would post anywhere, none of it ever having to do with Middle East politics. They would append to that a comment, that's great, but what about Zio-Nazi Hal Niedzviecki?
So, can I just ask? I want to ask about what specifically were your detractors' demands? Because was it that they wanted you to have a change of heart and have completely different politics? Was it that they wanted the publication Broken Pencil to become more political and political along certain lines? Was it some third thing? What was it?
It's interesting because one of the things that you notice is that no one ever speaks to you directly. My interpretation of that is because they are total cowards and cannot defend their point of view at all. Others may think otherwise, but that's fine. So I don't have like a huge insight into what they exactly thought would be the outcome of this. What I do know is this whole thing culminated in a really bizarre open letter that was put forth as a Google document that people could sign. And in the open letter, there were these demands. Demand number one was that I resign my own magazine of 30 years. Demand number two was that the magazine devote an entire issue to Palestine. And I'm guessing that would not include any critical content. That would be my guess on that. And demand number three was that Broken Pencil institute a lifetime ongoing boycott of all things Israeli. So, I'm not sure if you could even mention the word falafel. Hard to say.
Well, I guess it depends who you attribute it to. But did you have any? Did you have any contributors who were Israeli or Palestinian themselves?
No, not that I know of.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like we go around and do genetic testing on our contributors.
Well, fair enough. Really? Because that's exactly what the Canadian Jewish News were just, there were these swabs constantly.
I mean, it was a bizarre document. First of all, who could you even send this document to? since I was the publisher and owner of the magazine. So who are you sending these demands to?
It's fascinating because it all sounds extremely, I remember the 2020, 2021 downfall of girl boss era, when various influencers, whatever, were asked to kind of step down from things they had created. And it really reminds me of what happened with the man repeller blogger, Leandra Medine Cohen, who was, I remember there were complaints that she shouldn't really be like in charge of this beautiful thing that existed somehow independently of her man repeller, as if this wasn't Leandra Medine Cohen's personal blog that had some employees effectively. It's just interesting because like this sort of thing, it both seems extremely dated, that not dated like we shouldn't be talking about, but it seems like something that used to happen. Like I was just looking at a headline in the Atlantic. I have not read the article yet, by Jonathan Chait, How Liberal America Came to Its Senses. The period of left-wing illiberalism that began about a decade ago seems to have drawn to a close. So it's like cancel culture is over. Is it over?
It's interesting because the Canadian arts scene is probably the most ideologically captured scene in possibly the world. You literally cannot say anything without terror of being canceled, and people are sending me messages of support and saying, "You don't use my name. I can't go public." There's so much fear that if they step out of the orthodoxy of kind of what we might call the woke agenda or the left-wing identity politics movement, they're boxed in. It's a jail, and they are terrified to escape it.
We've been covering big art stories with the Gillers. We've been covering you, which relative to the Gillers, not necessarily as big. When you were posting these things, did you think to yourself,
I'm bigger than the Gillers?
I would hope so. I mean, you deserve to be. Did you think that nobody was going to go after you because like, who's going after like the publisher of a magazine about zines? Or were you like conscious and saying, no, I'm part of this culture. I'm not looking to get canceled. I'm not looking to be a provocateur, but I'm willing to stand up and say this as somebody who is deeply enmeshed in the art scene and people are listening to me.
I did not think about it at all in terms of, how will this affect Broken Pencil? I had no thinking whatsoever that someone would take my personal opinions on my personal social media and try to transfer those opinions over to canceling the magazine. It's such a stupid thing to do. It makes no sense. And the magazine is so clearly separate from my own political leanings, feelings, that it didn't even occur to me. I was definitely trying to be provocative and trying to say, that as a fairly, I don't know if you could call me well-known, but as a known active creator in Canada, you can say these things. You can step up and say, I do not like these protests. I do not believe in occupying campuses and terrorizing Jewish students. And I do not believe that characterizing a war 2 days after it started as a genocide is bringing any validity to your cause. So, in that sense, I was definitely like, I'm going to say these things. I'm proud of what I stand behind what I want to say, and I still do. But I didn't think at all that this was going to be something that could be used to destroy the magazine, which is exactly what ended up happening.
It's really interesting. I mean, I'm tempted to ask about the relationship between being Jewish and winding up in a kind of, for lack of a better term, heterodox kind of place. But I want to make sure we reach the Canadian politics topic. So I just wondered, so do you see it as the bigger threats to free expression in Canada today? Do you think they more come from the left or the right?
Well, in the artistic milieu, 100%. 100 billion% coming from the left. There is no right arts in Canada, and that's actually a problem. There is no dissenting points of view. You literally cannot say anything about how the arts are being managed, funded, run, and the fact that the arts in Canada are actually in a free fall of complete and total disengagement from the Canadian public. Even saying that, which is completely obvious and true, and can be backed up by numbers, but they don't want to hear that, because after 10, 15 years of woke orthodoxy, the fact that the arts are in the most perilous position they've ever been in, it's obvious what's causing it, and you're not allowed to say it. So in terms of, general free expression in this country, and the places where there should be the most free expression, which you would say, okay, the arts, publishing, journalism, and on campus, the left has completely imposed a totalitarian agenda of identity politics that to step out of it is to risk losing everything.
All right, I want to move on to larger discussion around federal politics, because I know you've waded into that recently, but I want to take a break first. So let's get to that right after this.
My name is Rivka Campbell, and I am the host of the CJN podcast, Rivkush. My podcast, it's a focus on Jews of color, talking about anything. It's really important for mainstream Jews to see that I am just as Jewish as you. The topics that interest you also interest me. I want to talk about Israel. You want to talk about Israel. I want to talk about food. Maybe it's not the food you want to talk about, but I want to talk about food. It's important that the person talking about Judaism, Israel, whatever, has a face like mine. It really, hopefully, changes the perception of Jews of color. To support my podcast and the rest of the CJN, please make a tax-deductible donation at thecjn.ca/donate.
This has been, for lack of a better term, a chaotic week, I would say, in Canadian federal politics. Chrystia Freeland resigned over a probably long simmering spat between her and the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau. This was ostensibly over a couple of smaller issues around tariffs for goods going into the U.S., as well as our wonderful little GST holiday. I'd like to believe that they were listening to Bonjour Chai, and Chrystia Freeland is like, listen, Justin, there was no such thing as a Hanukkah bush. There is no such thing. Leave it out of our GST thing. And Justin's like, no. I totally know that Hanukkah bushes are a thing and that's what caused it. Freeland has been getting lots of accolades for doing what people are saying is the right thing and showing her true colors. People are assuming that she's going to take a leadership bid in the near future. We don't know where things are. Government has not been prorogued, to use my favorite word, in Canadian politics, along with notwithstanding and so many other great Canadian parliamentary system words. You then tweeted that you'll be voting Conservative for the first time in your life. You're not alone. There are by-elections that have happened recently in staunchly Liberal ridings that have gone Conservative. Walk me through what led you to this decision.
Well, I'm not a heavily political person.
You're about to be.
Yeah, I've always gone kind of center left, NDP, maybe liberal, or maybe just being like, I'm not even going to bother voting because my riding always goes liberal. So what's the point? So I've kind of, roamed from those three areas. And then, but listen, it's clear that the Liberal government does not have my personal best interests at heart. They advance an agenda that, as an artist and creator, is pretty horrible, and as a Jew doesn't align with what I believe, that Canada should be a strong supporter of the only democracy in the Middle East. They're not advancing that agenda, that's for sure, and they're just making bizarre things are happening. Like, I don't know what this HST holiday thing is supposed to accomplish, but I'm going to be stocking up on the kosher wine. But other than that, I want a common. I hate to go back to the Mike Harris years, but I want a common sense government that stands with its allies, that does what it says, that picks up on the need for free speech and free expression, and doesn't allow terrorists to run through the streets, scaring the entire population.
So if I were to treat you like a population yourself, and where people poll populations, I'm going to poll you as one person. What percent would you say of your disillusionment with the Liberals at this point is Jewish related? And what percent is due to other factors?
I mean, I was pretty discontented before October 7th and the launch of 5 countries trying to destroy Israel. So I would say it's probably 60 to 70% other issues, 30, 40 Jewish related. And that's a big jump. Before, it was the Jewish thing was probably not that high on my horizon, because I just assumed that Canada would always support its ally in the Middle East, and it was a pretty big shock when Justin Trudeau and Freeland went from we support you, we'll do anything to help Israel, to not so much.
Well, this is interesting because I think there had been a lot of discussion about whether American Jews were going to vote for Trump, and a lot of everybody's put off by the campus protest, by all of the Democrats cozying up to the wrong people, whatever. Didn't happen. American Jews stayed with Democrats overwhelmingly, as always. Obviously, with individual exceptions, individual community exceptions, but that was still the case. It seems like it's going to maybe be playing out differently in Canada. Does that seem correct?
I think it will. I mean, first of all, Poilievre is not a convicted felon, so that's a help.
Yet.
The future is ahead of all of us.
That's right. And we could all end up in Justin Trudeau jail if he secures if he keeps going somehow. So Trump is a well-known figure that many people loathe for very good reason. It's a totally different scenario. Furthermore, for the Jews, there's some great Jewish conservatives that people really connect to. So I think that's also attracting us to the Conservative Party right now. And
wasn't one of them once a co-host of this very
podcast? I do believe, yes. Melissa Lantzman, when we just first launched this show, was a co-host for the first few months here.
I did not know that. There you go. So
important
Melissa,
trivia, I think.
Everyone in the Jewish community who supports the Jewish people and culture in Israel loves Melissa. So these are, major shifts to say, okay, if there is a party that is very clearly going to support our interests, whereas I don't think in the States you could say for sure what Trump was going to do, who he would ultimately align with, and there was not that sense that there was a strong Jewish voice in the kind of if he was to win and who would be in his administration.
I don't believe that Jews are single issue voters by and large, but what I'm hearing is that is very much where we are going. And it kind of scares me because if you look at the politics on the right, if you look at the policies on the right, outside of what goes on vis-a-vis Israel or anti-Semitism, a lot of them are very scary. And a lot of them are very scary to Jews. But Avi, didn't Hal
just say that he mostly isn't voting on the basis of...
I understand. Yeah. But I'm trying to get at is how does one balance, if I can answer your question, how do you balance the fact...
example of a scary policy.
Immigration, environment, the way that personal rights are if you're not a cis male or female that is white. A lot of these issues in America, it's a lot of other issues that are actually on the table, like abortion rights. I think that these are strong issues in terms of domestic policy that are concerning when you vote on a more conservative small c or big C platform. And I'm not always sure. And like in Canada, at least we have options to go and say, well, you could vote NDP, you could vote for the Greens, you could vote for the Bloc if you wanted. But, if you're in Quebec, how do you square that away? And where do you think that that's going in terms of generalized politics?
I mean, I think you have, you've listed the kind of the classic scare tropes around voting conservative. They don't care about people who aren't white and so on and so forth. They're going to ban abortion. Look, no one's banning abortion in Canada. That is 100% not on the agenda. It's not even remotely something that
I'll say yet now, and I'm not even joking about that. I do think that the way that, to respond to that, Canada historically has been conservatively fiscal when you look at conservatives and not socially conservative. And I think that that's starting to shift. And once that shift starts to happen, then the question of what's on the table starts to open up more.
Well, I mean, I just don't see it. There's no appetite whatsoever. So on that particular issue, on other issues, I think that there's a general consensus that our current immigration system is not serving the country very well. The left talking points are kind of, well, that's racism. Everything is racism. But it's not. It's just not. It's not. We're not getting the mix right in terms of immigration.
So there's the difference between social conservatism in the Republican Party and the Canadian Conservative Party, but also to just talk about the race aspect of it, it's not accurate demographically that supporters of right-wing politics are just a bunch of white people. And that's become clear earlier, I would say, in Canada than in the US, because there were all of these, can you believe there are all these Black and Latino men voting for Trump sort of think pieces that came years after the sort of look at that, all these people of fairly recent immigrant origin who are not white are voting for conservatives in Canada. So I think this idea that conservatives are the party for the cis white men or something. I mean, the gender divide is complicated and that's a different thing, but race, that does not seem to be quite it. It's just too complicated. It's that the left claims to be the side of the true anti-racism, sometimes while supporting policies that actual racialized people do not, let's say, uniformly want. Is that clear?
I think that makes sense. And also, if you look at the Jewish situation. So if we started off talking about what happened with Broken Pencil, if you apply that to this scenario, you see the left agenda that is supposed to be all about equality and opportunity and lifting up people who are oppressed. But somehow the Jews are left out of that. The most oppressed people of the 20th century are cut out of that altogether. So it's hard to believe anything they say on the subjects of equality and being concerned for marginalized people, because we have the evidence that it's not happening and it's not true. So I just don't believe anything they say anymore. I think it's all just a pack of self-serving nonsense.
That's interesting, and I think it's valid. I think where you and I disagree is the difference over whether or not they are lying and or not trustworthy, or whether there's just incompetence there. And I think that I still believe in the policies, in the general overall ways of thinking about liberal, left wing, for lack of a better term, approaches to governance. I just don't think that they managed to do what they were doing for a variety of non-political reasons. And I think that there are things that are wrong with what's going on in the left. And you're pointing out a lot of them around free speech, around canceling people, left, right, and center. No pun intended. Sorry, pun intended. But the difficulty that comes with governing is not going to escape the Conservative Party when they come into power. They are saying we are staunchly pro-Israel. But when all of a sudden they're asking themselves, where are our votes coming from? We see this happening in the Republicans also. They went into Dearborn, Michigan, which won them Michigan, and went to, the Arab American population there and said, we stand with you. And to think that that's not going to happen in Canada, that we're going to escape that, I think is a fallacy also. That being said, how do you think we manage that balance of going towards a conservative agenda without necessarily saying that we want to elect people that are much more to the right of where we personally might be?
I think what you see a lot in the US is American Jews who felt previously, clear-cut liberal, in this house we believe sign type liberals who, yes, they still voted for Harris, but they feel a bit disillusioned at this point in time. And they often will refer to themselves with expressions like politically homeless, if everybody's familiar with this expression. I don't get the sense, and I say this as somebody relatively new to Canada, so I have to be in favor of the immigration because it'll let me in. But I get the sense that you just don't really have the same sense of political homelessness for Canadian Jews, because it's like you can just vote conservative and it's not like you've, torched your own self-conception as a liberal voter. You know what I mean? It's just a completely different thing. You know what I mean? Like you can just do that. You're not signing on to Christian conservatism, right? As you are in the US. So even, I think for even a lot of observant Jews,
I don't think that's true, though. Have you been to Alberta? I mean, I haven't.
Of course,
but
I haven't.
Read a lot of that.
I haven't been outside of my neighborhood of Toronto
yeah.
and like one neighborhood of Montreal. I've never been anywhere. But I'm not. If I'm here to give the on the ground take of how it is in Alberta, then you got the wrong guy. But no, what I'm saying is that I don't get the sense that Canadian Jews feel so tortured by the prospect of voting further to the right than they might have in a previous election. Whereas I think for American Jews, it would be completely different.
I think that's completely true. The stigma that the left is trying to create is part and parcel with this whole idea that, look, if you don't agree with our whole identity politics scheme, then you're a racist. So it's the same kind of thing, if you're going to vote conservative, you're a racist. And that's just it's not a helpful dialogue. Of course, there is no political party where I agree with everything that they say they're going to do or that they ultimately will do. But you have to judge based on what a party got when they got into power, what they did. And the Liberals have done. I haven't seen such an incompetent government in Canada in my lifetime, and such a government that says one thing, does another. So I want to go somewhere else. Do I feel like I'm signing up for life to the Conservative Party? No, not at all. I just feel like I want to really try a completely different government, and obviously one that is, at least I'm hopeful that the two things most impacting my life right now, which is the way that Jewish people are somehow being shunted to the side in Canada, and the way that Israel is being treated by what's supposed to be one of its top friends and partners. And personally, my right to self-expression and free speech, those are all things that I don't feel the Liberal Party has any interest in. Which party does maybe have that? It's certainly not going to be the NDP or the Greens, so I have to go to the Conservatives.
Okay. You learnt, I guess, from your own example over the past month or so or two, that it's really hard to change arts organizations or people on the left within the world of the arts from within, to go and say, you have every right to do X, I want to have every right, and that's where the direction of things should go. Do you think that that's probably true also at the national level? Do you think that change from within the Liberal Party is ever possible? Or do you think that it's going to take, a couple of years of, being in the weeds and being lost for them to realize, hey, you know what, maybe we need to be centrists the way that we always have been?
I mean, I think that everyone went a little crazy with this whole identity politics, critical thinking, white fragility, whatever, all these kind of pop culture weird things that did not make anyone's lives better, especially the people who were supposed to be improved by them. So, like the Democratic Party seems to be currently trying to figure out how to leave that stuff behind a bit, so that they can actually get back to what people really want to see, which is, well, I'm not going to get into that, but that's clearly not what they want to see. They clearly do not want to see the oppression game playing out in every institution. So I think there's tons of opportunity to get rid of Trudeau and rebrand back to the center as an effective governing party.
I have one more question, though. If it's the Conservatives, do you think that they will add as an arts grant, perhaps, a prize for best instance of cultural appropriation?
I hope so. Thanks, Steve. That's great. That's really great. I think at the end of the day, they have no arts policy, as far as I can tell. I'd love for them to give me a call and say, Hal, come on board and help us develop a sensible, merit-based arts policy that uplifts every cultural producer in Canada, instead of pigeonholing everyone. And some people are worthy of grants. Some cultural backgrounds are not worthy of grants, based on policies that make no sense. So, or ideologies that make no sense, I should say. So, it's a problem, obviously, as an artist, that they don't have any cultural policies that I have discerned. But there's bigger things on the agenda, namely our survival as artists who can speak out and speak our minds and feel like they're living a free, honorable life in this country.
Hal, will you stick around for Nachas?
I'd love to. I have a beautiful Nachas.
What's your beautiful Nachas?
So I was the recipient of some Nachas. Can we say that? Is that the right way to use it?
I believe so. That's valid.
So in the wake of Broken Pencil's dissolution, I received a lot of beautiful messages from people who had been affected by the magazine over the years. This is a little snippet from something I got from a guy named Gary. And he writes, I was very disheartened to recently hear the news about the closing of Broken Pencil. I first discovered BP in 2000 when I was just starting to get interested in zines and zine making. Every time a new issue arrived in my mailbox, I was completely enthralled and excited. Growing up in small-town New Brunswick was indeed a cultural wasteland, where originality and uniqueness were frowned upon. I felt like BP was a beacon of light that gave me hope and helped push me through. I can't thank you enough for that. So that's just a beautiful little bit of nachas that I got from Gary in New Brunswick, that you go through tough times, but then people reach out and they really capture what you always wanted to do.
Absolutely. That's wonderful.
That's great.
Phoebe, do you have a nachas for us? Do you have some brigas?
I have, I can double nachas. Are you allowed to double dip some nachas?
You can totally double nachas.
Okay.
It's the end of the year.
So,
do whatever you want.
One is going to be purely self-promotional, but I'm excited about it, which is that I'm on the Dan Savage Sex and Politics podcast. It appeared today. I did not speak to Dan Savage today. This was a little bit earlier. So it was prior to the election that we actually spoke. It's not like a Who Will Win the Election podcast, so don't worry about that. It's actually all about straight women. So, Dan Savage being the most famous.
He doesn't know anything about straight women.
Well, I straight woman splained to Dan Savage. So that I'm really excited appeared, and go listen to that if you are interested in that sort of thing. If you feel like I have not been talking enough now, you want to hear more podcast with me, that would be a place. The other more general, wider world nachas is going to be a Britcom. Avi, yes, I'm going to do that again. Throw a Britcom at everybody.
Is it a Britcom about white women?
It's a Britcom about why white women.
Straight white women.
But what, Avi, you've conflated categories, because I'm going to explain. Some women who are straight are not white. Some white women are. But the point is, no, it's a Britcom about Jews, Avi. Jews. Get excited. Okay. So now you're listening. Okay. Finally, a crossover. There is a Jewish Britcom corner that I have discovered. via YouTube, I think. I don't know, whatever. Paul Mendelssohn's started in 1989 and went for quite a while, May to December. It's just like a sitcom, British sitcom.
Is it a romance?
It is indeed. But more interestingly, I have learned that he also created another Britcom that I have yet to see, but I'm very excited to watch. The Nachas is almost more so about the thing I haven't seen yet, which is called So Haunt Me, about a British family haunted by the ghost of a middle-aged Jewish mother. And I posted something about this because I was very excited about it. I'm very excited that it apparently, one of the stars isn't a star of Midsummer Murders. Very exciting for me. But then somebody pointed out that it's Oedipus Rex, Woody Allen. It's totally been done. So I can't wait to see it. I can't recommend it as in like it's good quality because I have not seen it, but I see that it is findable.
Have you not learned your lesson that you're not supposed to talk about things that you haven't yet?
I really, my sincerest hope is that this actress from Midsummer Murders, while powdering her nose, complains
comes and cancels you
in a TikTok. Yes.
Okay.
A deep cut for
deep cuts.
Yes. Avi, what have you got?
I'm going to talk about Hanukkah a bit. There's going to be some bregas here. There's going to be some nachas. If there's two things that happen when Hanukkah happens, it's that every synagogue and every Jewish organization might have a Hanukkah party or an event, and that all of the major Jewish a cappella groups that put out music put out a Hanukkah song. This year, the parties are 2 weeks before Hanukkah because everybody goes away, and Hanukkah is really late this year. It's between Christmas and New Year's, and I think that that's a little unfortunate. And I'm really a little bregus about that. That why would you move a holiday? You're not moving Yom Kippur 2 weeks early because it's conflicting with whatever important something or other. The point of a holiday is that it's on a given day. So I'm bregus about that, and that's my big finger wag to Jewish organizations to say, I know that you might get a lot fewer people, but them's the breaks. That's what happens when a holiday is on a holiday. And this year, both the Maccabeats and 613, which are the two major big Jewish a cappella groups that put out their songs, put out their annual Hanukkah parody song. They dipped into the well of popular culture, and I think for the first time ever, both came up with the same piece of popular culture, and they did a wicked Hanukkah a cappella parody song about defying gravity or defining history and standing strong as Jews. So I'm not going to say which one's better, which one's worse. They're both interesting in their own way. I will say that I have a brother-in-law who is in one of the groups, so that's neither here nor there, but that's my disclosure.
Are you going to disclose which?
Yes, 613. Okay. They are, according to my wife, who is the a cappella expert, they are the superior a cappella group by far. I'm not not because her brother is in there.
Bring back I Want a Puppy for Hanukkah.
There you go. That was good. I don't know if Phoebe, do you remember that one?
I have no idea what that is.
David Diggs, who was a Broadway actor, he was in Hamilton, among many other pieces, did a song 2 years ago, I think, called Puppy for Hanukkah, which was his Hanukkah song.
Every kid in every Jewish school in Canada was singing that.
Oh, boy.
I want a puppy for Hanukkah.
Did people actually then get puppies because of it?
I hope not. Not because I don't want puppies, but I think that it's a horrible gift.
It was more a metaphorical song about your Hanukkah aspirations.
Sounds good. I'll have to listen later.
And, actually saying that the children should all demand puppies.
Programming note, we will be taking a couple of weeks off for the end of the secular year of 2024. We will see you in the beginning of 2025. Maybe there'll be a new government. Maybe there will be world peace. Maybe there will just be latkes left over after Hanukkah. But whatever it is, we hope that all of your Hanukkah celebrations go well and on time. We hope that you listen to Wicked and go see it and sing along and do all of those things. And a happy end of the secular year. I do.
We don't.
On behalf of everybody here at Bonjour Chai, go enjoy yourselves. Take a few weeks and go listen to our back episodes if you're bored. Thank you for listening to Bonjour Chai for the week ending December 21st, Shabbat Parashat Vayeshev. The show is produced by Michael Fraiman, edited by Zach Kauffman. The executive producer for CJN Podcast is Michael Fraiman. Our music is by So-Called. We are a project of the Jewish Living Lab and are distributed by the CJN Podcast Network. You can listen to all our past episodes on our page at thecjn.ca/bonjour, and you can subscribe to the podcast and automatically receive all episodes on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. We'd love it if you told a friend about Bonjour Chai. It is one of the best ways we get new listeners. And as always, please email us with comments at bonjour@thecjn.ca.
I'm Michael Weisdorf, Chief Executive Officer with the Canadian Jewish News. We've put a lot of effort into trying to engage with the younger audience and the younger demographic, those who haven't really engaged with the CJN recently. They don't realize we're back. They say, I absolutely remember reading this on my Booby and Zadie's dining room table or my parents' den. We're trying to bring the Canadian Jewish News into the 21st century. The Canadian Jewish News is a not-for-profit organization, and we're also a registered journalism organization with the CRA. So we can provide tax receipts for donations at any level. To help support the Canadian Jewish News and help us continue providing free, high-quality journalism for the Jewish community, you can support us at thecjn.ca/donate. Thank you for your support and for being a part of our journey.